Hey friends, Kim from Stamping Imperfection. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am so excited because I am sharing a few cards made with this stamp set from Maker Forte today. And I am in love with this stamp set and the add-on. You can see you get 6 beautiful images. You get 7 of the stem word script sentiments, and then a whole bunch of little secondary sentiments you can add on to the larger sentiments. And I love this stamp set because it's very whimsical or artsy. It's just got a fun feel to it, and I almost feel like I could doodle those myself. Like that's how the stamp set makes me feel, and I really like that feeling. And I love making cards and notes and note cards and things like that from stamp sets like this. And you'll notice that there is also a coordinating Sentimental Stems add-on set with smaller blooms, and I really like it because some of the blooms are just a smaller version with differences from the larger set. And I feel like I could actually take these blooms and build a bouquet on the card and, just have a nice piece to color or watercolor. And so I'm very excited about this. And I love that they go together. I love that they're interchangeable. I love that they created this add-on that I can get so much more out of. And I'm just going to use one of these blooms today and one of the sentiments, but I'm going to make 3 cards. And I want to make some boutique cards because I live in a very trendy little town on it's a port town, so there's a pier to walk along the water, and there are lots of boutiques because the town is very touristy. And I mean, people come from all over the place to spend time in the town and shop the boutiques, and I mean, it's wonderful. And there's one boutique in particular I love going into because they sell handmade cards, and the cards are very clean and simple, and they usually have one image and one sentiment, and that's it. But I do love browsing through them because I get lots of ideas. And I also took a class on making boutique cards a long time ago, and another class called Beautiful Details on adding special details to your cards. So I decided I am going to make some boutique cards. I think for my mother's birthday, which is toward the end of January, she's going to get a set of boutique cards that she can use to send out to people. And I think that'll be a really fun. I'll package it really nicely. So, and I'm of course going to keep them simple because boutique cards are actually pretty clean and simple, and I just want to have fun with them. So I'm going to do some fun coloring techniques because a lot of people, when they see stamp sets like this, avoid them because they don't like to color. You don't have to like to color. I'm going to show you 3 different ways to add color to these cards very quickly with reinkers and a water brush. So I'm just cleaning up my spot here, and I'm going to move on. I actually created 3 of these backgrounds, and you'll notice they're all slightly different because I spaced them different, not on purpose, just because, it's hard to get exactly the same thing more than one time when you're doing something like this. So I'm creating my own pattern paper essentially, and now I'm going to add some fun color. So I pulled out 4 reinkers. I've got the neon blue there, or the neon lights. I've got the Coronation purple, English mustard, and coral keys. And I pulled out my favorite mister. This is the Mister Perfect, and I spritzed all of those with water. And you can see I used a large clear block, and I'm using my one of my water brushes from Maker Forte. They have a set of 3 that you can get. I really like the water brushes, and I don't actually use them for their water brush properties. I just make sure that the brush itself is wet and I do not squeeze water out as I'm doing this. I am using regular cardstock. So this is not, heavy duty cardstock. It's not watercolor paper. You could do this on watercolor paper. I just pulled out the cardstock that was sitting on my desk. And I'm just randomly adding some of these colors. And you can see I'm just flicking from the center out, and I'm not adding a ton of water. I'm being careful about how much ink I pick up. You can see I dab on the ink once or twice and do the whole flower. And notice I'm just putting the color on the center. I'm doing like 3 flicks in each petal because the petals are fairly big, and I just love the artsy feel of this. And I'm just randomly putting the colors around. There's no rhyme or reason. I just want a little bit of color on this card, and I love this technique. So I'm just trying to decide what I want to put on that last card, and I go with a purple. It needs a little bit more purple, and voila, that card is done. So I'm going to put that aside to dry. And it doesn't have so much water that it's going to take long to dry anyway. So for the second card, I'm just going to color one of the blooms. And I decided to fill it in with the English mustard. This is my favorite yellow. I do love Hyde Park, but this English mustard is beautiful. It's just a little bit of an orangey yellow, and I added some coral keys while it was still wet just to the center like I did before, and that's all I'm going to color on that card. I think it's fun. You could do all the blooms if you wanted to. You could do them all exactly the same. You could do them all different. Like, just have fun with it. So I'm going to put these on one of my little boards and put it on the table next to me. And I have one more technique I want to show you. And I'm using the same colors. Like, 1 drop of each of those colors goes a long way. So this time I'm just pulling the color down one side of each stem. I'm not even doing like the same side, on all of the stems. I'm just, filling it in a little bit, and I'm just making it wide enough so that I can see a little blue color and now a little coral keys all along the edges. And notice that I picked up the color once, and I'm basically getting all of the color on, so I'm not putting a ton of water on. I'm not making this really wet. Excuse me. So I'm going to do all the blooms. This is one of my favorite techniques. I like to do this with my Copic markers too. There's no reason to stress over coloring because there are so many different ways you can get color on your card. Like, this turns out to be a pretty colorful card, and I've hardly added any. And, reinkers, we have reinkers on hand for our ink pads, and you use them once every few months to refill your ink pad, and then they just sit there and they last for years. Might as well use them for some techniques. This is one of them. This is such a fun way to use them. And experiment. See what other ways you can come up with for adding color to your boutique cards. I love creating pattern paper like this by using my stamps. And sometimes I will measure and make everything in a perfect pattern. Sometimes I do it randomly like I did here. I always make sure I go off the page, and you definitely want to make sure that you get a nice clear impression. And you'll notice that I used a clear block instead of my MISTI for this because I wanted to fill the page, and it was much easier using a clear block. But I have a lot of confidence in how the remarkable Eclipse black ink and these stamps work, just inking them up and stamping them once. So you want to make sure you get nice crisp black images or dark images, or clear images that are nicely filled in when you're doing your stamping for boutique cards. Like, you want to make sure of that. And you want to make sure that when you create your card panels, you have a nice, like, professional crease there. So you definitely want to use a scoreboard and a nice bone folder. So my card bases are cut at 4.5 by 11. That's 1/2 of a whole sheet of cardstock. I'm scoring at 5.5. And notice that I'm scoring the well right there. And the way you want to fold it is that part that you scored, that actually goes in, you fold that on the outside of the card. That is the correct way to do it. And then you use your bone folder to go across that fold. And I love the Maker Forte bone folder. That end is so beautifully tapered. It gives me a nice crease every time. There's no wrinkles or cracks in that cardstock. It doesn't have any shiny spots. It's beautiful. Now my card panels were cut at 4 by 5 1/4, and generally the boutique cards that I see for sale are actually always single layer cards. Like the technique is actually done directly on the card, but I knew I was doing this watercolor technique with the reinkers, so I decided that I wanted to make a panel so that you can't, because you can see as I'm putting this foam on the back that you can see some of that watercolor through the card, and I don't want that showing through the inside of my card. So I'm using some foam tape to stick all of these down, and I've got a nice little border around. Now you could add a piece of colored cardstock around there if you wanted to, but most of the boutique cards I see are all white on white cards or just plain white cards. So I pulled out, I love this. This is English mustard. I love that Maker Forte has cardstocks that coordinate with their inks. You get 10 pieces in a package. It's 100-pound paper. It's solid core, which means the color goes all the way through. So I pulled out one of the sentiments. I pulled out the thanks sentiments because you can never have enough thank you cards, and just measured it on my ink trimmer, and it was about a 1/2 inch. So I'm cutting this at 5/8 of an inch. I'm cutting 2 strips, and then I'll cut them down to 4-inch pieces. And that's what I'm going to use for my sentiments. So I'll actually trim a third one down toward the end there, and I'm just going to take out my MISTI for this part. This cardstock has a tiny bit of texture, believe it or not, and I want to use my MISTI for this because I'll need to stamp it more than once for sure. I love this new little MISTI. This is not one of the new MISTIs. My husband gave it to me for Christmas, and I can't believe how much sturdier this one feels than the old one. I accidentally dropped my old mini MISTI, which I'd had for years, and it broke the bottom hinge. I just missed the tool keeper I keep it in, and it just went off the edge of my desk and smashed onto my tile floor. So again, I'm just using the Eclipse black. You could, of course, instead of using just the Eclipse black, you could actually do this on watercolor paper and add a layer of clear embossing and do the watercoloring that way. Or you could heat emboss this in black. Another nice detail for boutique cards is to add some metallic details. So heat embossing in a silver or gold is a really nice touch. So I will do some cards that way too. I'll definitely be using this again because I love these cards so much. I definitely want to create some different cards with these. So you'll see me using this one again for sure. Probably next week, actually. So I'm just using a little liquid glue. And I like the liquid glue that comes in these little containers. I know they have a couple different brands in the Maker Forte shop. And I really like them. I just feel like they squeeze easily. So I just use my ruler to make sure I got that straight. And that's it. I'm going to add some crown jewels, of course. So I did that to all 3. And you can see those cards have a lot of color. Like they're very colorful cards. It's amazing. I didn't stress about coloring. You saw how quickly I did that. You could do the same thing with your Copic markers or whatever markers you love. If you have Nuvar markers or Spectrum Noir markers or whatever you have, Tombow markers, go ahead and pull those out and do this. Like it's so much fun because I use the reinkers in the aqua brush because everybody tends to have those. So of course I pulled out a bunch of crown jewel gems, but I decided to add the greens. I believe these are the Celtic greens, green crown jewel gems, and I used my on the hook tweezers and my magic wand tool because those are my 2 favorite tools of the year 2021. love those two tools. And I'm just dabbing off the excess glue there, and I'll let those dry, but that's going to complete my cards. I would love to know, I love the one on the left the best. I would love to know which one of these you like the best. I'm going to put the links to all of these below, and I will be sharing more cards with these stamp sets, so you can get lots of use out of these stamp sets, because this is just one way to use them, and there's so many possibilities with these. So I'll put all the links below, so make sure you check out the links. I would love it if you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel while you're here. Click that bell to get notifications every time I upload a new video. And I'm just showing you all the good Maker Forte stuff that I used to make these cards today. Thank you so much for watching, friends. Have a happy new year.